as we mentioned earlier on the show, we will actually be touching on the 2023 state elections that were held yesterday. Now, I know it's a bit of like, I would say with the hot weather, it's also a hot topic as well, in which we will be covering for you guys shortly. So as you were talking, you know, PN, Pakatan Harapan and also Barisan Nasional, where they won Selangor Negeri Sembilan, Penang is a status quo for them, and also as well as Perikatan Nasional, you know, for Kelantan, Terengganu and Kedah. And all of which, I would have to say, Perikatan Nasional actually received the biggest share of votes in terms of 49.3%. For all the ballots cast. But then again, we were also talking about how the voter turnout for 2023 state elections was rather low compared to the previous elections, in which it was only about 70%. What do you think about that, Abu?
It is a bit sad to see that, of course, when we hold elections, we always hope for every citizen to actually cast their vote, for them to exercise their rights, because it is very important for us to take part in this democracy process. That is the point of being a Malaysian anyway, because we want to be able to have our say in determining the direction of where the country is going. And I would say it is a bit of a disappointment. Maybe it's not the general election, so people failed to see the importance of having
We should talk about that, you know, we should see what's up. We should ask our guest as well what she thinks about that, yeah, you know?
Yeah, of course, because we do have a guest in the studio and she is way more of an expert than us. So let's welcome SYAZA Shukri, who is the Associate Professor from the International Islamic University in Malaysia. Proud to say my alma mater when I was in my tertiary undergraduate years. We would like to welcome you to the show, SYAZA.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So, of course, as you can see, we know the results already. And it's also interesting to see that PN actually have denied PHBN the two-thirds majority it has been enjoying in Selangor since 2008. So does that mean there's a bit of a change going on, or maybe there's a bit of a change coming? What do you make of the election results semalam, SYAZA?
So you're asking about if there's going to be a bit of a change? There's going to be a lot of changes.
What is your take
now
on the results, basically?
Right. So if I go back to that, the changes that we're going to see, so there are two layers, right? So you're talking specifically about Selangor, firstly. Definitely, they're losing, they've lost that two-thirds majority. So what that means is that the current government now, PHBN, needs to up their game, right? They can't be comfortable as they did before. They have to really prove their worth to the people, really come up with good policies for the people. That's on their end. On the other hand, now Perikatan Nasional have, I believe, 22 seats, if I'm not mistaken. They have to play a bigger role as well as the opposition. They're not a minor voice anymore. They're a major voice in the DON now, in the state. So we are expecting both sides to really play an important and a good role for the people of Selangor. Now, I said there are two layers. So there are the other layer now on the federal level. What do all of this mean for the entire country? Only 6 states went to vote yesterday, but the impact will actually affect all of us. So as you said, Perikatan Nasional won big. That's fair to say. They won big, actually. So this would kind of guide the current government on where they want to go now.
So, SYAZA, when you say in terms of guide, right? So we're talking about the effects that we would have on the current government as well. Can you tell us a bit of, maybe we'll just go about a cycle of it, like how would it affect, or what would actually, or, you know, what do you foresee happening?
Okay, so technically, nothing will happen. Technically, there's no impact, right? As we should be aware, that state elections are different from federal elections. We had our federal election last year in November, where we chose our 222 members of parliament. And when that is done, and they form the government about a week later after the election, that's a done deal, actually. So no changes, supposedly, right? That's why I said technically. So what these state elections will do is that it's going to affect the people's psyche, more of that. And not just the people, actually, the government as well. So you asked me to talk about the cycle. Like I said, it actually ends there. The state elections is now done with as well. All 13 states. So there will be no more elections in the foreseeable 2-3 years. So everything should calm down now. Everyone get to work, and the Madani government should go ahead with, with their manifestos, their promises and whatnot. But again, there's the indirect impact that the government feels the pressure now on how they need to deliver. Now that they see that there are a big chunk of Malaysian voters that are not in sync with the current federal government. So what can they do now to convince these voters that they should stay for the next 4 years to come? But the next 4 years, I should say, let's leave the federal government on their own. And all the state governments, let's leave them on their own. Allow them the room to do whatever that they need to do for the betterment of Malaysians, and we go out to vote again the next 4 or 5 years.
It's kind of like, the position of the current government is actually being tested, I would say, in terms of Malaysians. Well, the voting result says for itself, Nabil. So, but then again, let's talk about the turnout, voter turnout, right? Okay. So a total of 70.1%, okay, which are also the eligible voters in the 6 states cast valid ballots in Saturday's poll. So the figure is actually much lower during the 82.49% recorded in the previous general election. And also, it looks like the state election is actually much lower, almost to, I would say, about 12%. So any idea as to why this might be? Is there like some sort of voter fatigue we would talk about? Or like, what is the actual reason you can say of the decline in voter turnout in terms of the 2023 state elections that happened yesterday?
All right. So I'm going to take another view from what you guys were saying just now. It is true. In terms of number, yes, that's a few percentage drop from last November.
Yep.
However, just like you pointed out as well, we have to remember this is state elections. A lot of our voters are not aware, number one. They're not aware of the difference of...
Oh, okay.
Meaning that I've had a lot of people ask me, why do I have to vote again? I only voted a few months back.
That's actually a question that came out a lot of times in the past 2 weeks.
Exactly. Literacy is low. In general, political literacy in Malaysia is quite low. They don't understand. Number two is, even when they understand, they don't care so much in the sense that voters tend to prioritize federal elections. They are more interested to put in their members of parliament because they know that indirectly would lead to the prime minister of their choice. So they are more interested in that than their local state rep and Menteri Besars, chief ministers. But what I was going to say just now is that actually 70% for state elections is pretty good, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Okay.
I was expecting 65, actually. I was expecting 65%. So when I saw the percentage went up yesterday, closing to 70 in Terengganu, in Kedah, it was more. It was close to 80, I think, in Terengganu and Kedah. I was very happy. So it seems that in those 2 states anyway, the voters are really interested to go out to vote. They're invested. So now the results have come out. We know they're invested to defend their government. So actually, there are voters who are really, they want to participate in this democratic process. Where we see lower turnout, I believe the 2 lowest were Kelantan and Negeri Sembilan. Kelantan is easy to explain. The cost of travelling back home,
Sure, yes.
right?
Okay,
Why would people want to go back when they just went back in November? Add on to the things that I said, they feel like it doesn't really matter. Fatigue, in terms of political fatigue, definitely. But that, it all relates, right? Like they don't understand the importance of it, and then a lot of politicking going on in the country, I would say in the past 3 years.
Every single day, actually. We hear something every single day.
It's always hot when we talk about politics, right? And then add on the cost of going back, having to take leave from work. You're going back to Kelantan, it's not a one-day affair. Right? At the very least, one night stay at some hotels. So all of these add-ons, so Kelantan has the lowest, I think 56% if I'm not mistaken. So it's different across the states, but in general at 70 plus, I think it's good actually. We should applaud Malaysians actually.
Oh, that's awesome. So actually the numbers are actually not as bad as we thought. Nabil, I mean in comparison, because we were talking about the previous general election. But then again, interesting that you also highlighted about travelling back to actually vote, because I saw this, it was a news actually that there was this married couple with a small baby that actually took a trip back to Kelantan. I think it was for Raya, and it took them almost 24 hours to actually reach from KL to Kelantan. If I'm not mistaken, it is to Kelantan. So it took almost 24 hours, and I was like, oh my God, with a small child in the
that must have been a
car.
journey,
Yeah, the journey must have been really hectic. So I really get where you're coming from in terms of that. A lot of people actually struggle, and also monetary-wise as well, could actually play a factor in travelling back to actually vote. But Nabil, do you think, like, in terms of that, right? Would you, in your opinion, if you were residing in Kelantan, or if you're from Kelantan, would you actually take the due diligence to travel back?
Well, it's hard to say because I can't really put my my feet in the Kelantanese shoes because I'm not in their position. Of course, a lot of factors come in, like financial, maybe time as well. Maybe they have other commitments.
Correct.
I would like to, of course, exercise my right every time. That's my hope. But it's easy for me to say my workplace and my hometown, they're just 20 minutes away, so I'm always in this area, but I can't say about the Kelantanese. And it's very important for them to know that it's actually their vote does take into account.
Of course, everybody's vote takes into account.
Of course, as you can see with some of the seats in Selangor, for example, the majority wins are very, very slim. We're talking about 669 majority win for Perikatan Nasional at Hulu Bernam. We're talking about 30 majority win at Taman Medan for Perikatan Nasional. We can also talk the same thing about Pakatan Harapan. They won by only 467 votes in Taman Templer. So they should know that every vote actually counts because it can actually determine the direction of the state government. I mean, let's talk about that 30 votes. That is such a small number of votes. Imagine if there are 30 more Pakatan Harapan supporters that came out to cast their votes, the result would have been different. So I think they really should know that the importance of actually going home and vote. But I mean, let's talk a bit about Selangor because there are some very results that are very close to one another. I think my question to you would be, is this, would you say that this is the incoming positive wave for the Perikatan Nasional, or is it just a matter of Pakatan Harapan not picking up the slacks and actually falling behind in the election? What do you think?
I do think it's a combination of both. I really do think. Number one, on the matter of Perikatan Nasional, you rightly pointed out that they've made inroads southwards in the country, right? PAS used to be a regional party. A lot of people just say that they're going to stay up north in Peninsular Malaysia, but we see that their strength has gathered. What shall I say? They've gathered strength in Selangor, which was unexpected. Well, before November, it was unexpected. After November, we kind of know it's going to happen already. Yeah. So that's on Perikatan Nasional. They successfully not motivate and mobilize people, but also get people to be on their side.
Sure.
But on PH's side, they've governed Selangor 15 years, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, when you're an incumbent, you are going to be prone to criticism by others, right? This is not enough, that is not enough. How much you do, there will always be people who are dissatisfied with you. Expected, no qualms in that. People should criticize the government, whoever it is.
Sure.
So I think PH was on a defensive mode, and this is the result, that they should have done more, even though we don't know how much more can they do, right? People are saying, what else can they do? But actually, there are more that they can do. They should not feel complacent, which I think is what happened. So it's a combination of both.
Right, okay. So we're also talking about, you know, the voters' age, you know, where we talked about how it's actually been lowered to 18, you know, in terms of for voting rights for Malaysians. And let's just talk a bit. We've been talking about Pakatan Harapan, we're talking about Barisan Nasional, Perikatan Nasional.
There's another player in the game.
There's another player in the game. There's another player in the game that I would say pretty much new as well. Let's talk about the political party Muda. You know, it actually fielded 20 candidates in total, comprising 10 men and 10 women for the 6 of the state elections. So, of course, as long Malaysian United Democratic Alliance performed, I would say, rather poorly in just concluded the state elections, with their candidates losing their deposits in 20 constituencies. So apart from that, Muda Information Chief Lokman Long could only muster 376 votes, bandar seat in Terengganu, while in Penang, the Muda candidate Vicky Harikrishan actually suffered a similar fate by collecting only 253 votes in the Perai constituency as well. So in terms of that, right, so what is your take in Muda's decision to actually go solo in the elections that just happened? And where do you think they would go from here as well?
So firstly, I think I should applaud Muda. We all should applaud Muda, right? For throwing their head in the ring, right?
Sure.
Like this is, like you said, Malaysia is a democratic country. All parties, anyone who wants to be a candidate, sure, you have the right. Go, try. Why not, right? No one's stopping you. No one should stop. So that's good that Muda tried. But on the other hand, we, again, I've been telling people the result of last night was not a lot of surprises for most of us. We expect Muda to lose. The reason we say that is because Muda has not enough grassroots supporters.
Right. Okay.
Right? They're mostly online, on social media, and they have a niche group of supporters, of voters that support them, which is not enough if you want to win a seat. So where Muda should go from here, I believe, is they need to focus on working the ground, really work with the people, show you what you're about. Maybe start with local councillors, perhaps, right? Then don't go straight to a state rep or an MP. Although, again, we should applaud that, but realistically, why don't you start from the ground up? The thing is, Muda is only about, 2 years, 3 years old.
We're talking about experience as well. In
exactly, in terms of their candidates, right? So that's why they need to really learn the political landscape in the country first, feel the beat of the people.
But I wonder, SYAZA, like, what do you think is their reasoning to go into the state elections solo? Why would they do that if they are aware that they do not have the grassroots support, for example? Because I'm sure they are.
I'm sure they are, yes. I'm sure they are.
Why do you think they made the decision to, you know what, let's forgo Perikatan Nasional, Pakatan Harapan, BN, we're gonna fight this solo? What do you think that is?
Now you're really putting me on the spot on national TV. So I don't think I can say much on that on national TV, but to give credit to Syed Saddiq, I think he just wants to try, I think. And okay lah, I feel that there's frustration on his side, right? We know that he wants to be officially part of Pakatan Harapan, but after months and months, no response from the leadership in Pakatan Harapan, there's that frustration, I guess, on his end, and he decided, you know what, I'm just going to try on my own. So I think that's how I see the decision that they made. I think if Pakatan Harapan would open their doors to Muda a few months back, then Muda would be part of the coalition and all of this would not come about. But then there's another story altogether. It didn't happen.
Of course, let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. You know, in 10 to 15 years, it could actually change. Because I see Muda as more of the voice of the younger generation, you know, in terms of even how they have been campaigning as well in terms of the election, right? Their style of campaigning is more towards the younger generation as how, you know, it would actually cater to us as well, being the future of Malaysia, you know, being the future of Malaysia. And talking about all that, and he's also one of the main reasons as to why the voting age actually declined to reduce to actually the age of 18 as well. So talking about all of that, right, in terms of the voting age and also the younger generation and everything, and you also mentioned how in terms of that, why do you think that a lot of people out there, how would you encourage more people to go, especially the younger generation, to go out and actually cast their votes? Because like you mentioned, a lot of people are skeptical, a lot of people have a lot of factors in terms of travelling back, in terms of, and all that. Because we're talking about election and we want to make sure the future election, we have more voters out there doing their due diligence. So how would you say you would encourage more people, especially the audience at home, to go out and actually cast their vote for elections?
My answer will not be very sexy because it's very common, which is that education. We need to really educate our people. A lot of people, like I said, they're not aware. The lack of political literacy leads to them not going out to vote. So we need to start there, like really educate students. When I say students, I meant nothing wrong with starting from primary. We don't have to talk about politics. Civic education, right? These are your rights. This is what you can do for the country. In fact, you know, let people know that democracy is not just about voting, right? Like I said earlier, voting is done. So we should leave the states, governments and the federal government on their own. But that is not the only thing that we can do. You can call your reps, you can write to newspapers, you can write directly to your reps, to your MPs. There are many ways that people can participate in democracy in Malaysia, but people are not aware the activism that are opportunities are out there for them. So we really need to teach them civic education, the political structure in the country, about federalism, about state governments, etc. Maybe this would kind of get people to be interested and invested in the political environment in the country. So there's no quick fix.
Sure.
That's the thing. That's why I say it's not sexy. If you want to talk about the quick fixes, talk about social media, mobilizing people, get people to go out to vote. That would get people to vote. But do they know what they're voting for? That's the question.
And that is an important question that hopefully we'll be able to answer in the coming years. We do appreciate you coming here. The answer was not sexy, but this discussion has been sexy indeed.
I mean, it's a much needed discussion, I would say. It's a much needed discussion. Thank you so much. We have SYAZA SHUKRI, Associate Professor from International Islamic University, Malaysia. Thank you so much for being here and also taking your, I would say your talk, taking us in a journey of talk in 2023 state elections as well. Thank you so much, Syazah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, talking about all of this, it could be voters' fatigue, it could be political, I would say, wear out, in terms for Malaysians. But then again, there's a lot of aspects that you guys have to look into talking about elections. And I hope, Nabil, as well, in the upcoming elections that will be coming in the forthcoming years, it would be much better.
Hopefully. I mean, get yourself educated because we are definitely educated through that discussion.